Hey, I'm Stan Gibson, and this is the Inspiration Podcast. Let's get to it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Inspiration Podcast with Stan. You know, there's a lot of leadership podcasts out there that showcase the highlight reels and the awards, the milestones, the standing O's, all that good stuff. But here, hey, let's dive into the messy stuff. Let's talk about where real growth happens, and really nobody wants to talk about it. Each episode, you know, I sit down with leaders who aren't afraid to pull back the curtain on the journey, explore self-doubt they've battled, the resilience that they've had, and how they found the courage to lead authentically in a world that, quite honestly, doesn't want conformity anymore. Hey, grab your favorite drink, get comfortable. Let's jump into today's conversation about what leadership's like, because I have one of my favorite people in the world, John Combs. Welcome, John Combs.
Yay.
Yay. So, John, I tell you what, we'll get into a little, I don't do bios very well, but before we get into a bio, so like we had about 5 or 10 minutes here of just our own little tech issues. And I know that you're a tech expert. and we obviously had a tech expert, but you know, so you were on a podcast, about 2 months ago. How'd that go for you?
They forgot the sound. It was awesome. I did the whole thing and then you realized they didn't have the sound on. We did it again and it was good. And it's gotten a lot of traction. So I'm glad.
So if it makes you feel any better. So this is episode number 3. The first 2 episodes of the Inspiration Podcast was a solo cast. So it was getting to know Stan, getting to know me. And I finish up both episodes and I'm like excited, I'm jazzed. And I go ahead and I kind of want to just hear a little bit of them. So I go in. I had my microphone like 4 feet away. I never even brought it close. I panicked. I called my producer, Cassidy Adkins. She is just one of the greatest producers and she worked her magic. She said, don't worry about it. I'll make it work. So anyway, so I'll tell you what, this one's going to work. This one's going to be excellent. This is episode number 3. You are the first guest I've ever had. I envisioned this a long time ago as to who it would be, but it didn't take me long, John. I knew it was you. So how are you feeling about being on today's show?
Well, let's hope it's not the last.
let's hope it's not the last.
Yeah.
You know, I was looking through, again, I don't do bios very well because I feel like they kind of wear people out, but I'm looking at I was looking at your bio and we'd known each other for about 3 or 4 decades. We don't want to get into age here, but you know, John, Real Estate Forum magazine named you the best boss in commercial real estate in the U.S. and featured you in a cover story of 2018. Okay, mic drop there for me. Orange County Business Journal's Excellence in Entrepreneurial Award 2022. Orange County Business Journal named you Entrepreneur of the Year in 2023. You're in the Orange County 500 in 2024-25. And you had this company that you started from scratch called River Rock Real Estate Group that managed over 50 million square feet. And for those of you out there that don't know what 50 million square feet is like, imagine having a real estate company where you manage every single office building available in Atlanta or Boston. I mean, that's about how much real estate they have. So, John, let's talk and let's go back. I said that we'd known each other for quite a few decades. How did we first meet, my friend?
I hired you.
You hired me.
It was a wonderful hire. I was still proud of it. And, you know, I was new at interviewing and you made it great. And you came in and did exactly what you said you would do for us. And I was grateful for that because, you know, as a young supervisor, you're insecure and, you made me so comfortable that I knew who to hire to do what. And, you know, I forgot to mention a couple of the properties because they're ugly. You're going to have to run. And you found out, you go, did you mention these other properties? I go, actually, I did it. I forgot them. It was so ugly. I don't want anyone to know about it, but you did it. You did a great job. And you know what was so amazing about you, Stan, is that you have this ability to get people together. And when you say on your mark, get set, go, they all go one direction, not scattered like cats. And you have that ability about people. They trust you and they listen to you and they do it with a smile. And that's really what you want in the world, I think.
Well, I appreciate that wholeheartedly, but I will tell you what, even though you weren't the first, and I'll just say boss, you weren't the first boss I had, but you were the best. And what I loved, and the reason I wanted you to be on this first episode is because, you know, not only were you the first, we've been great friends throughout this whole time, but you just had this ability. You had this, I always tell people, and it doesn't sound right when I say it, but you just had CEO written all over your forehead at age 25, 26, whatever you were at the time. you were already a VP. You just had this maturity about you that was like 10, 15 years ahead of yourself. Did you feel that way at that time, John? Because you certainly projected it.
That's really an interesting observation. I just care about people. I have a problem. Someone quit on Friday, and I've worked all weekend trying to figure out who's the best person for that role, and they don't want it. And I just spent just an hour trying to explain to them that, you don't make decisions about your career and what you're being assigned. You're paid as a leader to fix and grow, and usually both. And so it doesn't matter if an account has a tough reputation in it. Just go fix it. Do it the way you want to do it. But for me, I really believe in people, and I listen to people. And that's a soft skill that is not common anymore, especially when you look at the political environment, cutting people off and asking them what you did, 5 things you did last week, and you don't answer, you're getting cut. This is where corporate America's kind of moved to, where it's much harsher. And mine's more about the person. I actually believe, I know you know this, I believe happy people get better service. So my whole thing running my company was, how can I get you happy? And we learned that, as an employee, when you're your age, when I hired you, to what you want today are very different things out of the firm and your career and your job. You want to go home feeling a certain way, and it's not what it was way back when. And so we've had to learn here that if you want people for a career lifetime, you have to adjust to them as they move forward in their lives. And so sometimes I don't do what they want, but at least I tell them why I'm not doing it. But it's important to know that we don't agree. And it's important for me to understand their position. Sometimes as a company, you just can't do some things that people want. I can't send handwritten notes to 2,000 people like I used to when it was 30. So how do I get that? How do I touch those people? So I think that, thank you for saying I was a leader back then. I've had so much failure and so much rejection in my whole life that I don't look at things that way. But I appreciate you saying that. I look at things like, how do I help people to get ahead? And in the process, I remember the first day I started River Rock, my management company that had 50 million feet. The first day I saw a client, he had an aerial map out, and he had 3 pins in it. He goes, these are the 3 opportunities you have in the community right now. You're starting a company, you're crazy. You have to get the 3 out of thousands. You get those assignments. I said, no, but I hope your map's wrong. And I just move forward, And so, I think you've got to have the confidence to move forward if you have a passion and a vision. And mine was to create a place that people love to work, and then they would take care of our customers. And it proved, no one has started a management company with 0 square feet and turned it in 20 years to 50 million feet. It's just unheard of in the world. Luckily, when I was deciding the children were going to run the company, I needed to figure out a future. I found the culture that was matching, and that was Lincoln. And I worked really hard at finding that partner. That when you looked at the overlay, if there were 50 clients on each side, we had 2 in common. That's an opportunity to really grow. We looked at overlay of people. We had 2 people that weren't going to make it. Well, guess what? I didn't want those 2 people on my team anymore anyway. So there wasn't like a huge layoffs or cuts. People believe that in a merger, they're going to be that. They wanted to believe me, but they did believe me that it was all going to be okay. And here we are 18 months later, and no one's been cut. It was exactly what I wanted to have happen. There was no duplication of staff except for 2, and they're gone. I'm thrilled with the merger, and I'm thrilled with the leadership to find it. We're their first acquisition at Lincoln, and that's unheard of a global company who's not done acquisitions before. So they learned a lot on this. They made some huge mistakes, but they were all unintentional. And you can fix things with unintentional mistakes easily. But as far as leadership, I look at the people I've been around, like you years ago. I've had an incredible opportunity to work with very talented people, and I just have to try to stay out of their way. They'll tell you I don't know what I'm doing, which is fine. Someone the other day said, "Joel, what do you do?" I said, "I don't know, but I'm really busy." And they looked at me like I'm a nut job, but I don't have a set role anymore. Mine's more leadership, influence, stewardship, trying to make sure everyone feels loved and accountable.
I think you just answered a question that it wasn't a question I was going to ask. It was a statement that I was going to make. And you had a really cool party. We can talk about that in a little bit. But you had a 2020 party here a couple years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago. And this was when you still owned, River Rock. And you had one of the property managers that was there. And, I kind of pulled her off to the side. And I mean, I know you, John, and I know how good you are. And I asked her, I said, what does John do? It's just as simple. And she looked at me with these big eyes and this wonderful smile. She said, John's an ambassador. And I just like, what? I've never heard that description of a CEO. John's an ambassador. And she said it with such pride because you just carried the reputation of the firm. You carried the culture, and you're always the king of culture. What does that mean to you when she said you are the ambassador and building culture?
Well, I think I'm an influencer. And I think it sounds really cool because, I'm not really tech and I'm not social media crazy. Although they just posted at Lincoln something about me being in that pick for the OC 500 and it went viral. And I'm like, what does that mean? Is that sick or went viral today on LinkedIn, which I still don't know how they know that, but it's awesome. It's funny because I was picked in the OC 500 and I looked at what they wrote in the paper and the AI did it. I mean, AI wrote that half of me was right in the article or in the profile. The other half was AI, and I had nothing to do with this, what they said I was in charge of. And I'm like, okay, this is an example where AI isn't always 100% accurate. So I called the partner in Orange County. I said, I'm so sorry because I had nothing to do with the wins you had. They put them on my name, and it looks really great on paper. He was just dying laughing. But ambassador to me means that, I have a vision of what the firm should be like, what the culture should be like. And so I can't get to talk to people about that. And then I'm validated many times that it's not what I want, which is a huge opportunity for me to try to make it the way it should be. And for me, it's listening. You don't have to all agree, but it's listening and trying to understand the other person's side. And for them to, as an ambassador, understand what Lincoln's vision is and how they fit into that. And I'll give you an example. We did best company to work for surveys, which are run by an outside firm. And we won every year we applied, which is a huge thing for a company that was growing as fast as we were. And so I decided that we were going to split the company in half, not by departments or anything, just split it in half. And we were going to ask someone to facilitate the call and to ask them what we were doing right and wrong and what we could do different. Those then ambassadors on those calls came to executive team and said, here's what they're saying. Well, in a survey, you can get the results, but you might have other questions based on what it said, right? So this was our opportunity to say that we don't understand your answers on some of these questions on best company to work for. What did it mean? And I'll give you an example. We didn't understand what they said when they wanted flexible time. Did that mean for 10-hour days? Did it mean they wanted to be able to go home and work part-time? Did it mean that they wanted to have the ability to pick their hours? We didn't know what it meant. Flexible is kind of a huge request. Guess what it meant when we did these employee feedback?
What?
Everything. It was all over the board. People wanted one thing, some people wanted another. How do you then respond to that and give people flexible work environments, So I basically went back to them. I said, go to your boss, tell them what you're hoping for in flex time. And if they can't work it out or you don't like their answer, then call me directly. And I want to see what's going on. And no one called. They all worked it out and they got flex time. And the next year, flex time wasn't an issue on the survey for best company. Something else was. We were really happy we created a healthy employee program. Do you know what that means?
No, go ahead.
So we had KPIs, key performance areas for your health. So you did a cholesterol test. If you were female, you had a breast exam, nutritional counseling, and everyone had to do it. And if you we gave you points for each of these components. And if you did them all, then you were able to get benefits. Cash and prizes. Your benefits were your insurance was going to be subsidized huge by me because I knew selfishly you're a healthy employee. We saved 2 lives of women who had not gone and get breast exams, who had serious, really dangerous, fast-moving cancers. They had no idea at the time. We saved 2 people's lives. I have an employee who's a controller here. She's in incredible shape. eats very well, but genetically she has high cholesterol. Through this testing, she found out she had high cholesterol. Checked her diet, checked her exercise program, was able to bring it down without medication to a normal level. Well, I just found out last week she had a heart attack. She had chest pains, but also she had a heart attack. She had not been exercising and eating properly. She looks great. She looks like she would never have a heart attack. She's back home. She'll be here in a week. But that healthy employee program, as much as people hated it, you had to walk 10,000 steps a day for 2 weeks. They didn't like it, so they didn't exercise. I mean, for me, I pace that much in my office just talking to Gibson. That's a big, he has to go 10,000 steps every day. I loved it. You know, I'm on my headphones listening to a book and talking to Stan at the same time and walking up and down.
The grass doesn't grow too great under your feet, my friend.
But when I was kind of shocked, I said, well, how about 8,000 steps? You know, well, you're going to have to do something. You got to get off your butt and get out there and work. So healthy employee was not popular, but it almost 100% did it for that reduction in health benefits. And I was happy to do that selfishly. If they were healthy, claims would go down, right?
Oh, so far ahead of your time. So let me ask you a question, because I heard something there that everybody went back to their supervisor and kind of worked out a customized individual plan. Is it your philosophy that you can manage to the employee versus the company? And is there a point in time where that doesn't become feasible?
Absolutely. There's a time it doesn't become feasible. I would love for us to be off on Fridays, but they don't do that. Like it's just way too much for a big company to do. I think it should be off on Fridays. Actually, on this people working part-time from home, I find it's always interesting. They're working at home on Mondays and Fridays. I mean, I'm sure they're not working full-time, but they're not on commutes and they think they're productive and everything's getting done and clients are happy. So let them do it. One of the things you'll find out that selfishly, I came up with some programs that were very, very popular. I did it for a different reason, but it worked out great. I decided, I gave everyone a birthday card, a handwritten note, and a birthday card. People love getting a birthday card from me. I had no idea. Sometimes I would scribble on it, something. I'm not a good artist, but I scribble something. Maybe they played baseball and I created a character that was hitting a baseball. I don't know. They loved it. And so then I thought, well, if this birthday card's so important, what if I give them a gift with their birthday card? And so we would come up with, $50 gift cards that we would put in the cards. People loved it. They're like, you're kidding me. This is awesome. So then I thought, well, you know what? It's a cashless event. Let's give them their birthday off. You would have thought I walked on water because I hate my birthday. My birthday is the day after Christmas, and I've always hated it. And I tell my friends, if you give me one present for my birthday and Christmas, I'll give you one present. And you're like, I'm like, really? I mean, 3 different things going on in my life. So I gave them their birthdays off, and they were so appreciative that they got their birthday off. And I kept giving another gift too. Birthdays are really important to people. They're not to me, but they're really important to other people. So, my spouse loves birthday. We call it birthday month. It's not the day. We celebrate the whole month of his birthday. So, whatever.
It's funny. It's funny you say that because to this day, and I don't think I ever would have done it, but again, we've known each other for, I hate to say it, but probably 4 decades. I think I celebrate people's birthdays because of you. Because I think you did that. Quite honestly, a lot. I'm the one that I just have this long list of birthdays, and it's just a note. Doesn't have to be anything special. But I think now that you mentioned it, I think you're where I got it from. But I got a lot of lessons from you. And there was one thing that I do remember. And I think this was really important because I use this when I coach a lot of people. The one thing I learned from you at an early age was you just publicly praised the hell out of me. I mean, you like made me greater than I was, which I always appreciated. It gave a young guy a lot of confidence that didn't have a lot of confidence at that time. And yet when it was time to kind of yank my chin and kind of, rip me a new one, you did that privately. So you publicly praised and you privately criticized. Do you remember that? Or is that something that you just intuitively knew and you still do that to this day?
It's every day to someone, I hope I'm not jerking a chain or being mean, but, I always say, work for the job you want, not the one you have. And how do we get to that point with you? And so that if you're trying to, seek the job you want, not the one you have, that does require probably coaching on what you're doing great and what you're not to get to that next step. But for me, everyone should be promotable. And so privately, I try to talk to people and I don't demand anything, but I try to coach them. And then publicly, I think it's so important that everybody understand your wins in life. And I'm constantly celebrating someone. And I think it's, I had an employee, he's an accountant, and he looks like he's in pretty good shape, but I didn't know how good a shape he is. He just ran the LA marathon in under 4 hours. And I'm like, oh my God, Garrett, you ran the marathon in under 4 hours. I put it in the newsletter. It's going to go global. I have a picture. Took a picture of him. I mean, he's an accountant that most people will never have heard of. And here he is running the LA marathon. I mean, I got tired talking to the people watching him in the marathon. When they said, well, he has 3 more hours to go. It's 3 more hours of running, and he's in great shape, and he trained for it. So I just constantly, there's so much you can celebrate around people, and you look for those things. They're not going to tell you half the time. I mean, you were doing all kinds of things and with fellowship and with sports and with your wonderful daughter. But people didn't necessarily know you were going around bragging about it, but you were making that, you're hitting all 3 at once. And, I try to find that in people, and I try to do it myself too. One of the things you asked me is, what's my favorite book I've just read? I don't know if y'all have read this or heard of it. It's called Let Them.
Let Them.
This book, Let Them, by Mel Robbins, who's an incredible writer and speaker.
Yes.
The whole concept is let them be them, and don't try to change people. And if they're wearing jeans and you think they should be in a suit, let them wear jeans. Most things that we worry about in people are not important, really. This book is, if I wish I had read that when I raised children, because it would have really helped me. She's talking about how homecoming and her son had jeans on and wouldn't give his date a flower, a corsage. And it started raining, and they didn't go to a restaurant. They went to a taco stand and all got soaking wet and had a blast. That's not what Mel would have done in her homecoming or her the way she wanted to rest and be on a date, but her son was happy. And so the whole concept is let them be them. And it's not necessarily what you want. And that is a good lesson for me at business. We have 120 million feet on the West Coast. I think we have over 500 people now. And you have to let people do their job. I mean, I hate it that people are wearing sneakers to work. I hate it. But they wear sneakers, and that's the new style. I was more comfortable in a suit, but no one wears suits anymore. They think you're going to a funeral. So I have a closet full of beautiful suits that are never worn anymore. We learned that when we had opened a Silicon Valley office, and everybody was in coat and tie. They said, people up here don't do that. They're going to think that we can't relate to our customers if we're wearing suits. And we said, okay, fine. We're culturally compatible. You don't have to have one culture. It's that culture in Silicon Valley is a casual approach. Then why do we care if you're not in a suit? Well, guess what? Production went way up when they weren't wearing suits. Tenant surveys came back much more positive when they weren't in suits, because that was the optics. They wanted to be like mind, right? So I think Let Them is a great book for everybody if you're raising a family or have a staff of people, or just family. It's got so many great stories in it. So I try to read a lot, but I'm recommending this book. I have 4 books on my desk. I'm reading all of them at once, but this is the one I liked.
Let them be them by Mel Robbins. I'm going to put that in the show notes, everybody, because I think, what I'm gathering is, again, this wonderful quality of being able to manage to the individual, and again, let them be them. I think that's a pretty strong management style. But again, at what point can you not do that? Is there ever a point where it just gets, I worked for Wells Fargo at one point in time. We had 300,000 employees. When we let them be them, people started making bad choices, and all of a sudden we were, headlines for the Wall Street Journal, and not in a good way. How do you do this? And at what point do you have to maybe put some guardrails around it?
You have to, with any size staff, have guardrails. And like I said, before, you say on your mark, get set, go. Everyone needs to go the same direction. And that's sometimes requires guardrails, right? And sometimes, let's face it, some people just aren't good fits. We have long-term employees here from my company of 22 years. Some of them aren't happy with a big company. And I get it. Lincoln is a big company. You can't change it. So I think it's like, I don't know I forget if your daughter had a college coach or not for picking the college out, but there's a big business with helping high school people figure out
Right.
what college they would be happy at. Well, some are in small schools. They want private schools. Some want big public schools and they want to go Greek. And it's all over the board, but you have to kind of find the fit for you and what you're looking for your next step. My next door neighbor is trying to figure out the colleges now. His family wanted him to always go to Europe, to go to high school or college in Europe. They were going to buy a place over there and live in Europe near him. He doesn't want to go to Europe. Well, guess what? He didn't go to the big schools either. He wants to go to Pepperdine or maybe SMU in Dallas, but it's kind of far from his parents. He was the kid that didn't want to be he wanted to act like people. He didn't have parents. he was like, I don't have parents. I just live my life. I mean, they wrote him hard in grades. He was a water polo guy, very good at it. Now the rubber hits the road and he doesn't want to be too far from his mom and dad. I think so cool. And he wants to go to a small private school. Good for him. Let them.
Yeah. Two quick stories here. One is, my daughter, we did go through a coach, and, again, she wouldn't necessarily, like most kids, listen to mom and dad, but, a coach was a third party with, she listened to, and she just nailed my daughter. And I mean, like perfectly, you're not a small school kid. You go to a big high school, you'll get bored after 2 years. You need to go to a Big 10, Big 12 school. You need to study this, but not this way, that. She just laid it all out. And you know what? My daughter graduated in 4 years, not 4.5, not 5, she didn't change her mind after her freshman year because somebody laid out, kind of the vision as to where she would be comfortable, not where mom and dad thought she would be comfortable. And it reminds me of a great book, and I can't think of the name of the book right now, but Warren Buffett, he really didn't give his kids much, but he did set aside some money from an inheritance from his parents to go to each of the kids, and they could invest it in Berkshire Hathaway. Well, one of the kids didn't want the money, and he spent every last dime on it because he loved music. He wanted to be a composer, and he wanted to be somebody different. And so if he had kept that money, I think he'd be worth, I don't know, I forget how many billions of dollars. Instead, he's worth like hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars because he followed his passion. And he actually wrote the score to the Kevin Costner movie, Dance with Wolves. And he's written the score of many movies and many things that have to do with American heritage. And he composed this stuff before he was like one of the first on MTV. So my point is that yes, finding your passion, finding your swim lane is so important. And I love the fact that your management style does just that. Let me ask you a question, because I do want to know, because I know you've just lived this unbelievable life. I just think you're a culture builder. I'm assuming that along the way, obviously you didn't start with 40 or 50 million square feet. You worked at Insignia in a very senior leadership president type role before. What were some of the toughest times? What were some of the biggest challenges that you feel like you hit a crossroads as to, man, this isn't working? Anything come to mind, John?
Well, I've had a lot of rejection. I mentioned that my whole life. I used to tell Stan, being the athlete, I was the water boy. And a lot of times they would say, just sit on the bench, we'll get our own water. That's my life. This seems to have been one knockdown after another. When I started River Rock, it was really tough. I had a non-compete and an AT rate of people that had worked for me for 6 months. I negotiated from a year down to 6 months, which meant I started a company and I had no people to call to recruit. I had no clients to call. The people I knew were already, in a net with the seller or with the buyer now, is with a CB bought Insignia. But I started the company anyway. And I remember the first client I got, she represented offshore money, and she came in and then we had a really nice interview. And then she said, well, we only do business with people whose names are on the door. Now, that was an objection I had not planned for, right? So just out of the luck, I said, well, I don't think people would want to do business with P. Diddy Combs. course they wouldn't. Back
He
then,
comes.
he was just a good guy, right? And she goes, well, I guess you made your point. I said, well, I don't want Combs on my name either as a company. And so, Tremble Crow sounds good. Don Cole sounds good, but not John Combs. So we started with River Rock. But it doesn't matter who you are. There's always an objection that you have to prepare for, right? If you're in a big company like Wells Fargo, what you're overcoming with clients is very different than as a small company, right? And there's good and bad in both, or there's strengths and weaknesses in both. So what you asked me about was, what did you ask me? I forgot.
Well, just challenges. Some of the
Well,
lower points
just-
maybe in your career, and how'd you deal with them? How'd you recover from them?
So we had a client that was going to start buying and developing a lot of real estate. And I had done an article on, which is better, internal management or outsourcing management? That was my article. And of course, because I was starting my company, my thesis was outsourcing's great. So he called me in to talk to me about this article. And I said, well, I have an idea. Why don't you do both? Why don't you partner with me and our company, and then we'll manage all your real estate. And that way you kind of have internalized it, but not really. He thought it was a great idea. Unfortunately, long term, he was buying and building in markets I wasn't in. So he wanted out of the relationship, out of the partnership. He triggered a buy-sell agreement, which means that I had an opportunity to find buyers for the company, even if I didn't want to sell it. He had an opportunity to find buyers for the company, and then he could force, as long as he got the money back that I borrowed in our partnership, then I could pick whoever I wanted. Well, I interviewed 3 big companies. I was devastated. I wasn't ready. It was not good timing to sell the company. It wasn't making money. I interviewed 3 big companies. They all, I know, wanted us, but I didn't want to work for them. So I was in a recently new relationship, who now is my husband of 22 years. But we got on a plane to go to Hawaii because I was about to have a nervous breakdown. And he said, I'll tell you what, John, I'll give you the money to buy him out. No due diligence, no documents. I'll just give you the money because I believe in you and I believe what you're doing. You don't have to decide now. We have a long flight to Hawaii, but when we land on it, you have to call your partner and tell them who you picked. I thought about it a while, and I said, well, finally, before we landed, I said, are you doing this because you want to tie me up in a relationship or because it's a good business decision? He thought for a minute, he goes, both. And that was honesty. I said, well, do it. So I called my partner and he said, dude, which one did you pick? I said, no one you know. You have your money in 3 days. And he said, well, I need to know who. I go, you don't need to know who. You're entitled to know who, and you're not going to find out. Goodbye. And I never spoke to him again, but he got his money. Later, he filed bankruptcy with, he was the biggest borrower of the bank we were with. He filed bankruptcy and stiffed him. I didn't stiff them. I gave them their money back. So that was just a rejection that was almost devastating to me that came about. Another example, which I've kind of hinted to, is I came out about 25 years ago, and I was really worried coming out that I would lose business and I would lose people over being gay. And I really was devastated by it. There were private, back then, like ICSC, there were a group of gay people that kind of got together that no one knew about. There was no CCs on people. It was a tough time to be in a mostly white, straight industry of real estate, commercial estate. I was talked about everywhere. Did you hear John Combs came out? It was a big thing back then. And you know what? I got business over it. I got people that were gay that I didn't know were gay wanted to help me at work. I didn't lose one account. Now, I'll tell you, there's certain clients that I didn't call on that my president, who is a jock, he called on when we won the business, but I didn't lose any business. Well, fast forward 20 years later, and JLL came to me and said, and CB, so we want to buy you because we need a great person in the C-suite. I said, well, that's nice, but I would rather you want to buy us because you like the company and our reputation, not because you need me as a gay guy in the C-suite. And I didn't do any of those deals. Lincoln could care less, the situation. They just wanted our culture. They wanted our people. They wanted our clients. They wanted we were killing them. I never even bid against Lincoln, which freaked them out that I grew 50 million feet and never bid against them. But I never did. They were a mess back then. They had 30 websites, 30 names. they didn't have consistency anywhere. And in clients that have multiple properties in multiple markets, they want consistency. So we were able to create teams by client who their job was to make the client's job easier and not have the client not to have to ask for things. So all of our business is by client and client teams. And let me tell you something, our clients are changing quickly too. They're working from home. They're not necessarily on our time zones anymore. They move without telling their employer, they're in other markets. So we've had to adjust a lot to that. And, COVID changed everything and it changed how we do our business too. Now, don't get me started on AI and how that, because I'm using AI now to write letters that I don't know how to write, and they're doing a good job for me. But I think AI is going to influence so many things. Just one other thing I want to mention to you in our trending. We have 500 accountants at Lincoln, and their average salary is $85,000 a year. What do you think is the average salary of that same position in India?
No, only because I do some international work, but I'm going to say 25,000.
$20,000 to $25,000 for the same job. They're doing a great job. They're on our time zone.
Speak English.
They're all like us as a client. I think at the moment there's about 80 people in India in a beautiful suite side by side, just doing Lincoln accounting. That is going to change the world. Now, our accountants are like, oh gosh, are we going to get laid off? No, because there's so many openings we can't fill around the country. You'll just pick up those assignments. In accounting, it doesn't matter where you sit. But it's helpful for us to, when someone quits and we can't replace them, to go to India, honestly. I was a huge opponent of this. I still am worried about it because accounting is key in property management. It's either right or it's wrong. It's not kind of right. It's kind of like you're either pregnant or you're not. You're not kind of pregnant. So accounting is the heel. It's like the crux of great property management. You want to send a manager, make a property manager crazy, give them bad accounting. I mean, it's just, they don't know what to do with it, right? But so far, we're testing in India and it's gone really well. And it's proven that I don't know what I'm talking about half the time. I would have never thought this was going to work at all. Never been to India. Called them. I called, right?
No, I agree. It's in fact my wonderful assistant. She's from Suriname, South America. I don't even know where Suriname was until she told me. She speaks 5 languages. I can barely speak the one that I'm given. And again, for, much less than what I would pay for, domestic labor. And it isn't, I still want to support, and I do, because most of my vendors and people that I work with, my team, are from the US. But it's amazing what you do get in the way of artificial intelligence and in the way of offshoring. The one thing that I took from some of the things that you just said, John, which really,
for 1 minute.
Yeah, please.
I don't want to forget this. I tell people I speak Texan and a little English. So that's where I'm at.
In fact, that reminds me of a question I do want to ask you in a second. But one thing that I took from you, you sold your company based on what you created, not who you are. That's one thing I took. You sold it on what you created, not the fact that, your lifestyle, you're this, you're gay, everything. That is cool in that you own who you are, but that isn't you. You sold what you created. I think that's you're gonna feel good about that at the end of the day, John.
There's a whole lot of emotion that goes with that. And it's not all positive. You don't go from, I used to say that if there was a meeting I didn't know about, I wasn't included in, I knew what it was about, or I could find out what it's about. Now there's meetings about me that I don't even know are happening. I mean, it's very different when you're in a big company, and their styles are very different than mine, but the culture is the same. We all care about people. And if there's mistakes or people are unhappy or angry, it's not intentional. Why would I intentionally want anyone to be angry or unhappy at work? I don't want that. So we're constantly trying to resolve those issues. But I think that what made the merger with Lincoln work is, and I own a piece of Lincoln, but I asked for it. I said, I'm going to take some of the proceeds. I want to invest it back in you because I really believe in what they're doing. And I believe that that dollar invested is going to be worth a lot more money with all they're working on globally than John was working on the West Coast. I think there's a lot of big proponent in that. I'm selfishly thinking it's going to make a lot of money, but I believe in it. So when I have employees say, well, I don't know if I like Lincoln or it's just too big or whatever. I say, well, I own Lincoln. So let's talk about fix this for you, if I can.
Ah,
But I think
that's such a good point.
a third of the world doesn't have running water. Wasn't that your quote? A third of the world
Probably.
has running water. How can we have problems? I mean, we have running water.
Yeah.
Can you imagine not having running water? So it's putting it in perspective, I think. Did I answer your question?
You did. I want to ask you one thing. And again, one of the things I know that your outlet are horses. And this is going to be a question out of left field for you, one that I knew you didn't prepare for. And what is it about horses? Is there anything about horses, raising horses, riding horses, that teaches you a lesson on life, on leadership, on anything? Anything that you can think of?
Horses' eyes are on the sides of their head. So if you walk across in front of them, there's a blind spot. They don't see you till you get to that side. So what do? They'll turn their head so they can see you and try to reduce that blind spot. Well, we have this much between our eyes and we have huge blind spots. So it's fascinating to me, the psychology of riding a horse, trying to get them to do what I want them to do. That sometimes they read me. I mean, it's just proven that horses can read humans, and they know if you're scared, or they know if you're, confident. They know if you're loving or if you're an asshole. They know it, and then you get on to ride and try to get them to perform. My horse is a show horse, trying to get them to perform. Now I'm rusty. I've ridden in 30 years. I'm back at it now, and my first horse show is in April. If they think I'm good enough, I'm prepared enough. But I tell you, it's the horse's sense and their psychology. Then to get them, these big animals, to perform in the way. It's a fascinating thing. I have an autistic grandson. He's 5 years old now. And we tried to get him to ride 2 years ago because it's proven there's a friction between horse and rider that they can sense. Autistic kids can sense. And the first time he wouldn't put a helmet on, he was, really scared and had fits, and part of his autism, right? And today, because he has a little bicycle, he'll wear a helmet, which you have to do to ride a horse as a kid or anybody. So we put a helmet on him, and he got on the lesson horse. And you know what he did? The first thing he did, he put his hand on the horse's neck. He was reading, and the horse was reading him. Then the second thing he did, he put his hand on their butt. And they were walking. He was walking, but he was trying to get the rhythm of the horse, and the horse was trying to get the rhythm of him. He didn't have any fits. He's nonverbal. He started to talk a little bit while he was on the horse. It was fascinating. It's proven that horses can really help people that are disabled or or autistic or nonverbal. They can really help them with that feeling of thinking about the horse, not what the coach is trying to get them to do on the horse. So they've taken several nonverbal autistic children, put them on horses, and they've taught them to talk, which is a miracle. He's 5. They said if by 6 he's not talking, he'll never talk. So we're doing everything possible to get him the stimulation, the coaching, and the environment. And guess what the breakthrough is? The horse. I had no idea. I'm thrilled he's riding a horse. But for me, horses are smart animals, and they're intuitive. And they don't really have moods. My horse is a workhorse. She's 5 and she doesn't have a mood. She's not allowed to. It's a very strict athlete, like you probably trained in basketball. So anyway, I never did sports. I'm not good at it. That's why I'm the water boy. Here, but I don't do it.
John, we've all got our magic trick. In fact, that was one of the questions. If I just, we'll finish up shop here, and I do have one story afterwards, but what's your magic trick? What do you do that is so effortless to you that everybody just looks at you and just says, gee, it's magic.
Listen and humor are what get me where I want to go. You just got to listen to people and be funny. And those two things are very welcomed by no matter who it is and what their problem is. I think that humor is the key to everything. because our problems aren't really that big when you get down to it. If you can laugh about it later. But I got to tell you this one story that we've talked about. I had a boss who said, make decisions based on the information you have, whether you got it directly or not. You have to make tough decisions. And so I wanted to move to California, and I knew that if I told him, he'd lay me off because he was laying people off. So I put the house for sale, went in and said, I have information to give you that you need to know, but you got to promise me you're not going to use it against me. Told him I was moving to California with my family. Little did I know that Stan and our team was going to have play a joke on me. I was out of town. They were going to go in the backyard and take pictures having a picnic at my house. Guess what? They found out I was moving because there was more cell sign in the yard. I got had.
So this was back in the day where there was no phone. It was like a Polaroid picture. And I'll tell you what, you created a culture at an early age. And I just want to tell this real quickly because the culture was, I would probably be called into HR maybe every other day now. And it wasn't that we did anything bad, but I will tell you what, if you took a vacation, you were fair game. You were absolutely fair game. You had an assistant and she took a vacation. While she was gone, we boxed up all of her belongings, put them on her desk and put a pink slip there. And we got in early when she got back on that Monday morning and we just crowded around, kind of peeking through the blinds just to see her reaction. I mean, literally HR type stuff today. Yeah. That was the culture and we laughed. We laughed. And yes, when we went over to your house thinking, oh, John's on vacation, let's act like we're having a picnic and let's take some Polaroids and let's take a beach ball. Let's let him think we're not working. I don't know who had the biggest joke on who. We thought we were playing one on you. You were playing one on us because unfortunately, yes, you moved on to California. One of the best moves you've made. You've lived a storied career. You still got a lot more, I think, ahead of you. You've got a lot more in the tank because you just make the world a better place, John.
Thank you. I still copy good ideas. I'm proud of that. I don't have all the good ideas. I copy them. And so that's the other trick for me is try to find what's working and use it. And there's always a better way, don't you think? There's always a better way.
Oh, yeah.
We're more happy.
There's nothing original anymore. And there shouldn't be because, again, I have borrowed from you and I'm sure you have borrowed from others. And it's just what a bad idea to just try to do it on your own, right?
Yeah. You just in life and work, you need three things. You need happy clients, happy employees, and a profit. And all those three things are so important. And so that's what I focused on, Stan, is just trying to make people happy, clients happy. And where there's friction, try to erase it through humor. And it seems to work.
It's worked for you. That's a good mic drop, my friend. If people want to get in touch with you, John, how would they do it?
You can reach me at jcombs@lpc.com. That's simple. jcombs at lpc.com. And otherwise, you can call me on my cell, which I give to everybody. It's 949-836-7000. That's an old number. That's that kind of simple number, but it's 949-836-7000. Love to talk to anybody that has questions.
I'll tell you what, if you just trust me, don't just listen to this, take him up on that. You will be amazed. And I'll tell you what, John, I can't thank you enough, not just for what you did to me early in my career, but the fact that we remain friends. And I just can't thank you enough. And you know what, just all the blessings to you and Sheldon, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining me on episode number 3. Number 4 is going to be pretty cool too. So make sure that you come back. I hope you got a nugget or two from today's discussion.
Mine's better.
It'll definitely be. What's funny is episode number 4 is with a guy who actually played in the NFL for like 8 years. So talk about a difference between my good friend John Combs and this guy who played for the Arizona Cardinals and for the Raiders. So anyway, great. That shows you the depth of this show. That shows you the depth. Anyway, if you want to get in touch with me, you know what you can do. Just go ahead and go to stangibsonspeaks.com, stangibsonspeaks.com. And I would love to take you, love to field any questions you have. Until again, may you all live a rich and intentional life. Take care and have a wonderful week. Well, that's it for today, my friends. I hope this conversation sparked something meaningful for you. If it did, share it with someone who could use a little inspiration too. You can find more tools, stories, and coaching to support your journey at stangibsonspeaks.com.